could wiggle my toes, and some days I couldn't. I began to spend a lot of time in and out of the hospitals with flares, horrific flares. My skin on my feet would peel until they would bleed. I felt like I was being electrocuted, stabbed, set on fire, put in ice cubes. I felt I was frostbitten to the core. And I still go through all of these things, just not as often. Time goes by, this pain doctor comes into the picture, and here we go again. Now, during this time, though, let me back up for a moment. During this time, I had, met with neurosurgeons, met with arachnoiditis specialists. I was still traumatized. Those who were around me, for the most part, were traumatized over the event. I went from this happy, vibrant woman to having convulsions on the floor. I have had muscles rip off the bone from spasms. It left my back to where the spasms were so severe I would have hundreds of knots where the fibers had torn and made all these little marbles all up and down my back. I had to go through ultrasound therapy to help them to heal. I had my glute muscle completely separated from the hip. I left a huge indentation. So there's through the physical battle, there was this mental battle as well. And I'm spending a couple of weeks at a time in the hospital with flares. My body's swelling. I'm breaking out in hives. I'm having so many medical issues and so much pain. And nobody could get it under control. The time that I spent in the hospitals, the doctors were amazed that my body could tolerate the amounts of medication and me still be in so much pain. It was horrific. But they had to continue to pump the meds in me because when the pain escalates so high, your blood pressure increases, your heart rate increases, and everything, all these chemicals change within your body as well. And so you're a pain doctor. Now, I've already seen a neurosurgeon who's and a specialist, and they've all said she absolutely cannot endure the tiniest of needles ever going back into her spine. No invasive procedures because I have adhesive arachnoiditis and RSD. Well, this pain doctor comes into the picture and he writes down our first visit in his own word in my medical records. And he clearly states, she's absolutely not a candidate. I agree with such and such doctor and such doctor. Patient is absolutely not a candidate for a spinal cord stimulator, lumbar puncture, or any invasive procedure. About a month and a half goes by. This doctor's taken me on, and he's already convincing my loved ones, my caregivers, that if I don't get a spinal cord stimulator and a pain pump, I'm going to die because we can't keep my pain levels down enough with the oral medications, and that the oral medications are destroying my stomach and hindering things even further. Well, at the time, I'm on 30 milligrams of extended release morphine and 60 milligrams extended release morphine, 15 milligrams morphine several times a day. And I forget every baclofen. There were so many things. And again, I'd already put myself through withdrawals prior to that because my first neurologist had me medicated on 3,800 milligrams of Neurontin a day. And he didn't want to take me off of it. I knew that it was destroying my gray matter, and I felt it was making me worse. So I pulled myself off of it without medical supervision. First time ever that I've done that, and it was horrible. I ended up in an emergency room. Withdrawals are awful. So anyway, the spinal cord stimulator trial progressed me, and it was epic failure. So now my pain's increased again. We can't get the flares under control. So he convinces everyone that I need the pain pump. Against my better judgment, I agreed to do it. And another worst day of my life. So we discussed this in depth, and I've educated myself to arachnoiditis, scar tissue, the spinal cord, the anatomy, the physiological part of it all, and made sure he understood to not go in where all the scar tissue was from the spinal cord injury, from the lumbar puncture. And he agreed. We discussed it more than once. Day of the surgery, I wake up and I'm in hell. Because not only, and we had discussed it going into the abdomen, the fat wall part of my abdominal area. He went in at the lumbar puncture site and inserted the catheter there and ran the catheter all the way up in the space to T9. So that is now encased in scar tissue, interior and exterior. And he cut through the nerves on my backside of my hip on the left side and cut through the muscle and put the pump itself in my hip. Well, it wasn't in well. I couldn't sit, for one. I couldn't lay down on my left side. And not only that, the pump itself would slide out of that pocket and up into my lower back, and you could pop it back in. So while it's doing that, it's also moving that catheter around even more. And I felt it all. It was excruciating. Excruciating. So the pump had to come out. That ended up being an ordeal. The doctor ended up being very angry with me. He was extremely unethical, over the top. So because I kept throwing a fit, he's demanding to see me once a week. And I'm telling him, look, this isn't right. I'm in so much pain. Why is there so much swelling? What's causing this catheter to move around like it is? There was so much going on. My left side was so swollen and purple, and it was awful. He ends up getting mad. He cussed me out, actually, and ended up making the referral to the neurosurgeon that I had previously seen to have it taken out. Well, he makes the referral and then has his wife call me to tell me if I go for that consultation, he's going to fire me as a patient. Well, that didn't go over too smoothly for me. But anyway, I scheduled it. The neurosurgeon couldn't understand why this doctor was acting this way. And I began to have some fears that because I had to have, it was October 17th of 2013, I had to have a refill before my surgery to have the pump removed. The pump was going to be removed on the 22nd. And I was concerned. I didn't have another pain doctor to refill my pump except for this crazy doctor who had already written a letter to my neurosurgeon and to the medical board of the state of Arkansas and told them that he had concerns for me because he felt that I was not psychologically capable of making decisions regarding my own health. And that, I have a copy of the letter. It's mind-blowing. So I shared this, my fears, my concerns, with my neurosurgeon and with some of his staff. And I told him, I said, I fear that this doctor's going to harm me. I fear that on this last refill, he's either going to put the wrong thing in it or cut it off. And we scheduled the refill. He wouldn't allow me to his clinic. He's already got in touch with all the other pain doctors here in this state. So none of them would see me. And I go in for the refill. I'm not allowed to have a witness. It's at a local hospital. And we leave. The next day was a Bon Jovi concert. I'll never forget it. My sister is the only reason I was able to go. And I'm a Bon Jovi fanatic, in case y'all didn't know. I've always loved Bon Jovi. So this was a bucket list thing for me to be able to pull off. I was determined. I was in my wheelchair. And because I was given that will, and I'm just now remembering how that chain of events unfolded. I would use a wheelchair, but I didn't have my own fancy wheelchair until after the pain pump. It was the pain pump that put me there. They told me I'd need it for the rest of my life. And I told them I'd see them in about 6 months and show them I do not need this for the rest of my life. So, Bon Jovi concert, I'm sweating, my pain's increasing, I'm feeling as if I'm going into a flare. It was pretty bad, but I managed to pull it off with help. The day of the surgery comes around, I'm not doing so well. And the surgeon comes in and to see me, before he takes me back. And I told him, I said, I'm concerned, my pain's up, and I feel that I'm going into a really bad flare here. This doesn't feel right. So you just need to know that, because you're going to be putting me under. And he's so kind and promised me I'd be okay. And next thing I know, I'm waking up in recovery. He comes into the recovery room and apologizes. He says, Mel, I owe you an apology. Well, why would you owe me an apology? Because I didn't listen to you. You were right. We took your pump out and we placed it on the table while it was still hooked up. It had all the volume in it from your refill. The pump wasn't working. It was shut off. You're getting ready. You're not in a flare. You are in withdrawals. And we just cut the supply off. So he took care of me orally, but my body rejected it. And I almost died more than once through that. And I'm still not healed from the trauma from it all. I think that's why I strive so hard to make sure nobody else has to endure this. Everything just started shutting down on me. I couldn't keep liquids down. I couldn't keep foods down. But it was more than that. It was so violent. And I had my son, a dear friend of mine. and my stepmom, who was trying to help me through this. I'm being transported by ambulance a few times to the hospital, back, pretty much back to back every couple of days. And I was transported to the same hospital that this pain doctor is associated with. I've got infections. I've got all kinds of things going on. And they said, well, we need to contact your pain doctor. And I said, no, he's no longer my pain doctor. I understand he's associated here with this hospital, but please do not contact him. Well, I don't know if they did or not, but what I do know is that their fix for this while I'm going through withdrawals was to slap on one of the 100 mix of fentanyl on my shoulder and send me home. Well, you don't start people out that high on fentanyl. But they did me. And I stopped breathing 5 times before that was all said and done. And then I ended up demanding to be transported to another hospital. This time, I'm spewing blood all over everything. And my son saw it all. So I'm picked up by the ambulance. And this is interesting. And I had a port. So the medics come pick me up. They didn't have the right kind of gloves in their ambulance to access my port. So they had to come into my home, go through my things to find the correct gloves because I had them from training cadaver dogs. So I can't even remember if they even found any or not, but they ended up getting me to the hospital, to the one that I requested. And I remember being on the gurney and the nurse, my dear friend, and my son had created a system with the pink buckets, and they had a stack of them, and they were making the rounds with the buckets because every time they would hand me one, I was spewing blood into it. With all of the spewing of the blood, I had numerous esophageal tears because it was so violent. I looked up at the doctor that was treating me that night. Very kind soul. And I looked at him and said, promise me you're not going to let me die. That's my son. He can't see this. Of course, I'm looking up at him, and what's he going to say? He can't promise me that. So they admitted me, and I was there for a little over 2 weeks. My family was called in. My friends were called in because I shouldn't have made it. Lots of tests were done, and that's when the healing really had to begin, and I knew how important that was, because I knew if I didn't find a way to heal, I would not live the rest of my life in that level of pain. I wouldn't be capable of it. I don't know anyone who is. So, in the midst of all of that, I read a lot. I listened a lot, and I absorbed. I was blessed with individuals in my path who I reached out to, or who heard my story, who reached out to me, who helped me. Specialists, who I refer to them as specialists, who took time out of their day to speak with those who were taking care of me, to lead, guide, and direct them to help me stay alive. And it worked. It worked. And I am forever in debt to those individuals, and they know who they are. And I knew that living on the medications was not going to be the right path for me. I'm a lightweight. I say that I'm a lightweight. I took in more medications, IV, intravenously than I should have. I shouldn't have been capable of it, but that's what my body did need at the time. Through all of that, I've gone through Neurontin withdrawals, Opana, Nucynta, hydromorphone, Dilaudid, baclofen, Lyrica, Cymbalta. I should have brought in my whole list of meds that I've ever been on through this journey. I knew they weren't good for me. For the acute pain, yeah. You know, we need that. We have to pull that pain down. But I knew that these things, they definitely were not working for me. So I've always been kind of a primal person anyway. So I began researching oils, herbs, spices. I'd already put so much study into the anatomy and physiology with animals in my career and pharmacology. And so I began to apply that to me. How can I help me? How can my body heal from this? How can I survive? So I began to break my battles down. Man. Now, through all of this, for some reason, my brain kept telling me I had to document everything, and I did. I documented everything. And I would write down every day. I created a sheet of paper. It has lines at the top, and it has these little figures at the bottom of it that go across. And I would use those to fill in, and I had a line out to the side of it where I could describe exactly what I'm feeling at that time. So I have years of this. And writing helped me. It made me feel like, some of the sensations in the beginning, am I really feeling this? And you try to turn it off. You don't want to be feeling these things. And so the meds weren't helping. I began using my own body as an experiment to see what I could do. I've been through methadone withdrawals. That was the last big one. I had a lot of in-home health too, where I would be hooked up to IV at home, physical therapy at home. And I was so blessed. And came to know some of the most wonderful doctors who've become family of my heart. I wouldn't be here without them encouraging me. I went to one doctor for high-dose vitamin C, a dear friend of mine who also suffers from arachnoiditis, had located him. My first visit with him, this doctor read through my medical records, and he wept. And he looked up at me, and he said, "I'm so sorry. Had you walked in here with cancer, I could cure you. But you have arachnoiditis. I can't fix you. But I do promise you to do everything in my power to decrease your pain and give you your quality of life back and get you back out in the field training dogs and pursuing your nonprofit foundation. You may be doing some of it from your wheelchair, but you will be doing it. that meant the world to me, because what just happened there? My condition was acknowledged, and he was brutally honest with me. But then he turns around and says, I promise you, and fills me up with, because you can. And that was a turning point for me, where, and this is before the pain pump had even entered the equation. Wow, words, and I've always been preaching this throughout my whole career in the communication with the animals and with children. Words are powerful. They are so important. And I look out now and I see so many patients, they're beaten down all the time. They have all of these positions. You can't. If family members who love them and out of concern are telling, you can't. But why do we do that? We can accept what's wrong with us and still have the mentality and that the training within our brain that tells us that we can. So that feeds into all of the oils and the primal ways of healing and adapting, learning to improvise. And we overcome. I'm always preaching to improvise, adapt, overcome, but it works. It works. So I began to experiment with lavender essential oil, frankincense, myrrh, bergamot. I have so many oils. And research, lots of research with recipes and how, the carrier oils. So I use coconut oil as my main carrier oil. And I will mix that with whichever oil that I feel that I need. I love the lavender. It helps with pain tremendously. And I bathed my body in it. I would rub that stuff all over me. And I noticed that, oh, wow, things are dying down a little bit inside of me. They're not so over the top. My sensations had decreased. My pain had decreased. The burning had decreased. So I thought, well, maybe I'm onto something here. So then I kept on experimenting. While I'm becoming, as time goes by, I become less dependent upon the opioid medication, which was also interfering and contributing to my gastroparesis and all the other internal issues, that it slows everything down. And it's unhealthy for us, because now I'm not saying that we don't need opiates, because I'm very aware of the opioid crisis going on, and what's happening with all of that is wrong. They're good people are suffering because of what the bad people are doing. There's so much to that, and that's for when we have about 3 hours to discuss things. So I also began to combine magnesium. Every cell in our body needs magnesium to exist. When we are deficient in magnesium, we have cells that die. When we don't have cells that are properly nourished with the things that they need, we become more ill, and we're not able to function the way that we should be able to. I also learned that grounding, how important grounding is. And that's when you go and you either charge or discharge yourself by touching skin, going out barefoot, immerging in water. I learned that I could be pain-free if I was floating in water. Pain-free, floating in water. I've learned so much through this, and there's still so much left for me to learn. But all of the things that meditation, yoga, I've learned about how important an anti-inflammatory diet is. If any of us who suffer from inflammation of any kind need to be on an anti-inflammatory diet. We also need to know that and an organic diet as well. When I began to eat organically, I'm only human, so I'm going to step off that path. I'm going to have pizza or, chocolate or nachos or, I'm not perfect. But every single time that I go off of that organic diet, I will get sick. It's not when, but I will every single time. Because of the gastroparesis was so bad, I began to eat coconut oil and take lipospheric vitamin C. This reversed so much of the issues that I was dealing with. Taking in coconut oil and lipospheric vitamin C. And I continue to do that. I continue, and I take my fish oil, my vitamin E. B12 is extreme. That is so important. I did know about that and how B12 works with your nerve function or lack thereof, because I'm also pernicious anemia, so I've received the injections throughout my life. Well, as I began to research more, I kept coming into this knowledge, that this information of how important the B12 is, and it's important for your memory function too. Anytime my B12 becomes deficient, my pain increases, my sensation increase, and I'm extremely fatigued. So I do my best to listen to my body and keep those injections as regular as I can, as I'm able. Let's see. Tyson, what am I leaving out here?
Hold on, sorry, I had to make my way. Well, gosh. I don't know. You know what? I still have that document. Should I pull it up?
Which document?
The one that you sent about all the oils and the supplements that you use.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I do. Here, I have it right on my computer, I believe. So let me see if I can find it.
Now, is everyone here, do they have arachnoiditis?
Not at my pain support group, no.
Okay.
I'm the one who has arachnoiditis and RSD, but we have fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
All sorts of back issues and ankylosing spondylitis.
Okay, I have that too.
Yes, so we get here.
Well, let's talk about something real quick, because I was diagnosed with the RSD, fibromyalgia. There's a whole list of everything I've been diagnosed with, but let's talk about some of these things that have been going on. And we don't have to go into too much detail. It's going on 7:30. Okay, arachnoiditis is when you have scar tissue. Adhesive arachnoiditis is in the spinal. The adhesive arachnoiditis is when it's within and it's encasing your nerves in your spinal cord, in that scar tissue, or there will be adherence to that wall, and it keeps these nerves that are floating freely, they keeps them contained. Well, what we need to understand too is that scar tissue starves those nerves. Cerebral spinal fluid cannot penetrate through that scar tissue to nourish the nerves that nourish our organs. Then we end up having lots of issues. Now, I've noticed that with RSD, RSD goes back to the Civil War, and RSD is damage to the nerves, and it's the most painful condition known in the history of mankind. Arachnoiditis is a form of RSD. Fibromyalgia, in my opinion, is also a form of RSD. It's resulting from nerve damage, creating that fibromyalgia, scar tissue, soft tissue. That's what that is. And we have to learn to bypass Because once we begin taking the medications, things change and they alter within our bodies. Now, some of these medications are absolutely necessary for your diet. I also feel that many of them are not. We take one medication, then we need another one, then we need another one, then we need another one to deal with this side effect or this side. Oh, well, now this is going on. This is now wrong too. So when utilizing the oils, we change the way we are absorbing the nutrients. Where there's scar tissue and you have gastroparesis or other gastrointestinal issues going on, what has happened is your body's ability to absorb the necessary nutrients and minerals that we need to function and to heal, it's diminished. So we bypass it. So the best way to do that would be the transdermal route. And that's why the oils work so well. And when you're using these oils, you can begin by, and I always use a carrier oil, but I always begin at my feet because that's where the nerves actually begin and it feeds all the way up. So we've bypassed. I don't have to wait for a pain pill to absorb through my system. It's immediate. Now, when we are on medications, I know there's some patients they'll contact me and they're trying to get into this method too. And they get frustrated because it's not working fast enough. So then they go back to their medications. But one of the things that gets missed is how important that detox is. In detoxing our bodies, we should strive to be doing that every day. To detox the heavy metals out, to detox all of the toxins that we've been absorbing for years, to flush that out of your system, cleanse your organs, and at the same time cleanse your mind, because our brains are the most powerful weapon that we have. Retraining our brains against pain is one of the most powerful things you can do. When my legs don't want to work, I will will them as best I can with my brain. And everything that I'm doing, I will tell myself, I may be telling within the last 15 minutes, I've been sitting here telling myself I don't have needles on my feet. Winter's coming, so things increase. And so the way I treat my pain changes. I play around with the oils and with different things and heat. Okay, so now let's go to what you were wanting to.
Okay, Arlene has a question for you real quick.
Okay.
Did I hear you correctly when you said that B12 increases pain?
Decreases.
Decreases. It decreases.
D.
But when she stops it, then she notices.
I had been taking it and I stopped taking it because I just wondered if it was necessary. And now I'm wondering if I should go back on it then, from what you said.
I do my best to keep my B12 levels at 1,000. So when my doctor does my blood work and my B12, I want to be certain that they're staying at that 1,000 mark, because that seems to be what's healthy for me. And for really just about anybody else that I know. So the B12 is so important, but it also assists with memory. It assists with memory and dementia and so many things. Your ability to think and absorb information.
B12, yeah. Are there any other tests that you would suggest that we ask for the doctor to make sure they check when they do our blood work?
Well, there's the test, and I don't recall the exact name of it right now, and I wish someone who was listening in knew. I know if Terry were listening, or Louise, they would be able to pop it out like that. There's a simple blood test that can be done that will show the doctors how you metabolize certain medications. So, and what medications the body will not metabolize.
Isn't that like It's CYP 450 or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
CYP 450.
Yes, that's it.
It is a blood test that will tell you how well you're metabolizing your medications. Some people have a that allow their bodies to metabolize them, and that's why certain medications do not work. CYP 450.
That's an important test because one thing I've noticed is being a participant in the support groups that we have for arachnoiditis and RSD. It appears to me that physicians have this guideline that they go by for those that are living with chronic pain. And every one of them it seems so many of them anyway, go through that same process. They go through the same drill with the medications, and then the injections, and then the stimulator, and then the lumbar puncture, and all of these other injections and nerve blocks. And, you know, the nerves are, our nervous system, the human body as a whole is amazing and has the ability to heal many things. And, you know, I really want to get that awareness and education out there so that more physicians are more open to that, share that information with their patients. But I also know that the battle is much larger than that, because we have to get to the core and fight that so that the physicians are actually able to do that. So many of them are restrained. They can't talk about primal meds. You know, they're not allowed to. There's really no money in it for them. You know, I've sat with, when I was receiving my infusions, I sat with a doctor who was receiving the same infusions that I was for a different reason. He had a tumor, almost the size of a grapefruit. He put himself on an organic diet, apricot seeds, organic Concord grapes, organic Concord grape juice, loads of vitamin C, switched the acidic and pH within his body. And it wasn't much longer, after 6 months, he was cancer-free. He was an oncologist. And he cured himself just like that. That amazed me. That amazed me.
I am a strong believer that our gut health makes all the difference. A huge
Yes.
difference. In the way
Absolutely. Yes. If our gut's toxic, we've opened ourselves up to so much illness and pain.
So, Melanie, I'm just looking through this document here, some of the stuff you had. Did you talk about echinacea?
Echinacea, wonderful for immune support. I did not talk about that. I have winter time's coming, so I'm going to be I'll be taking more echinacea. That helps me to fight off flus and bugs, viruses. Echinacea is extremely important. Yeah. Wonderful immune support.
Mm-hmm. And also it helps with inflammation as well.
Yes.
It's good for those with fibromyalgia and also arachnoiditis.
Mm-hmm.
And how much?
Rheumatoid arthritis. Echinacea. How much do you take?
Do what?
How much echinacea do you take?
Some tea. So I would say maybe a teaspoon of it or so. And how much tea I made.
What did you say? I think it's powder. But she puts it in her
Get liquid too. I used to.
You can also mix it with honey in a spoon. can take it that way too.
Let's see, what else do you have on here? You have so much on here. I don't think we'd ever get through them all.
Probably not. I'm not even sure myself. Let me try and pull it up here too.
Would you mind if I printed this off and gave this to the people here?
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I will do that. And then
That would be great.
yeah, and then if they have questions, I'll write them down and I will send them to you.
Okay. Okay, great.
If anybody that is on the phone or on the video wants to ask Melanie questions, please don't feel like you can't. Just you'll need to unmute it and just pop in.
I do also. Oh, what was the question?
Another thing that I've learned living out here in the Midwest where we don't get a lot of sunlight, especially now, I take huge amounts of vitamin D3. Most docs will look at me when I say how much I take a day and go, so you have a script for that, right? I said, do I need a script to take something that's over the counter? So, and the nurses question me too. But I take 20,000 units a day if I'm good. If I'm feeling bad and the weather's bad, I take even more. I
know a lot of people who do that.
And it does help with the pain.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, I use the plant. It's all plant-based, plant-derived. Yeah, non-prescription, non-synthetic. Good vitamin D.
So is there a certain brand that you should use to make sure it is natural?
I always I order a lot of my stuff off of Amazon. So I want to be sure that when I'm ordering the vitamin D that it does say plant D3, plant derived, organic. Non-GMO. Where are you guys at it? I can't tell if you're in a gym or in a...
Oh, we're in a physical therapy and occupational therapy. Well, they do all sorts. It's dynamic life therapy and wellness. So they do massage therapy, and they do physical and occupational therapy, and they have yoga classes here. They do all sorts of things. And then they let me have my support group here also.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes, they're awesome.
Massage is so important. All of it is. Yeah, all of it is. Massages are always good, though.
Did you find your document, or do you want me to email it to you quick?
I have a condition that's unusual. I have pneumofibromatosis.
Oh, wow. Fibromatosis.
It's skin tumors. I know there's nothing much you can do for that.
Well, actually, I would look into using coconut oil, avocado oil, apricot oil. I ordered all of those oil. I order off of Amazon. My coconut oil you can get at Kroger or any other store. The other oils I will order from Eden Gardens or from doTERRA. Those are all the carrier oils. I would look into frankincense and myrrh and lavender. And I would use concentrations of frankincense with the coconut oil and begin rubbing that on my skin and absorbing it that way and see if that wouldn't reduce the amount of tumors that are growing or decrease their size or decrease it altogether. Frankincense has so many healing properties to it, and it's been proven to diminish tumors, cancerous and non-cancerous. And I would also bathe in it. I would fill a tub up with water, and I would add, I would start out with maybe 4 to 7 drops of frankincense oil in the bath water, along with Dead Sea salts. And you can order the Dead Sea salts off of Amazon too. It's all pure, imported from Israel.
No, we don't have a bathtub where we're at.
If you don't have a bathtub, then I would get a bin, a basin, or a galvanized little tub that you could soak your feet in and absorb the frankincense even that way, on top of transdermal.
Okay.
Does anybody else here have questions? You know, people always think of the questions after it's over. That's what
Melanie?
There's somebody on the phone.
Yes, Melanie, this is Daphne. Good to see you and glad to see you doing this.
Daphne, like Daphne, my Daphne?
Yeah, good
Ah!
Daphne. Yeah, I'm actually kind of bed-bound, so I'm watching this and learning. But do you take any of the essential oils orally, other than like the coconut oil and that you talk about? Because I've heard that people do, and it's not something that I've ever felt comfortable with, other than just the coconut oil. You know, I just don't know that it's made to be taken orally. What's your opinion on that?
I personally do not take them orally. I do the coconut oil. Now, I also do oil pulling, where I'll take a spoonful of coconut oil. I will add an essential oil to it. I love peppermint oil. I'll do that, and I'll put it in my mouth and swish, for 15, 20 minutes, as long as I can, and then I spit it out. That detoxes our body and removes the toxins from our mouth, from our whole body. But that's as close as to taking them orally as I've done. I would listen to your gut. Yeah. I know people who have. Also, when you're looking at your oils, one way to look for purity is to get a paper towel, place a drop of that oil on the paper towel. When it dries, you shouldn't be able to see where it was at all. If you are able to see, then you know that it's less pure of an oil.
Now I get all mine from Eden's Garden as well. Have you had good luck with that primarily?
Yeah, I use them a lot. I do. Okay. I love their little booklets that they send out with each order.
And they're a lot cheaper than some of the others that people sell at home sales and that type of thing.
Yeah, they really are. Now, I will say this, though. When it comes to frankincense, I do prefer doTERRA. It is a lot more expensive, but I do prefer the doTERRA over the Eden Gardens frankincense.
How do you spell that, honey?
Which one? doTERRA?
doTERRA, yes.
D-O, capital T-E-R-R-A.
And you have a reason for that?
It smells better, but the purity of it appears to be better as well.
Okay. I knew you had a reason. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question, and then I will leave you alone. As you know, I'm recovering from a surgery at this point, 2 weeks post lumbar fusion.
Yeah.
is there anything right now? Opioid therapy is certainly something I've got to have. At this point, they've got me on 50 micrograms of fentanyl, and I'm doing Percocet as needed, and I'm not sure how much that's needed yet because they just changed that today. So is there anything, just since it's a chronic condition, but it's an acute condition, my surgery, that you would recommend acutely that I really hammer hard in this post-op period?
Lavender. Lavender.
Okay.
Lavender. Lots of lavender. And frankincense.
And it can be placed anywhere? Yes. Okay.
You want to use a carrier oil. Use a carrier oil.
Yeah.
And I would really begin at your feet. I would really focus on your feet because your body's going to absorb through the nervous system that way. It's going to feed straight up and go where it needs to go.
Thank you, honey. I'll get off of here and let someone else talk.
Okay.
Back at you.
Okay.
I always say, when in doubt, use lavender. That's
yes. Yes, I love lavender. It works for everything. Mm-hmm. It does. And for insomnia, I use the Good Night essential oil blend. Mm-hmm. Works great. Which enabled me to not take trazodones or Valiums and things like that. I use a little bit of Good Night oil.
My kids ask for Good Night to diffuse it in their room.
It smells so good. Yeah. I love it. Your kids are so precious.
Thank you. As far as ingesting them, I know a lot of people don't like it or recommend it, but I personally ingest some of the oils, not all of them. You should ingest a lot of them. But yeah, I do. Like lemon, I put it in my water. If I have a sore throat, thieves, I'll put it in my tea, things like that. So, but there are some that are so strong that like once you ingest it, even if you put it in a vegetable capsule, you're like, you can just taste it and feel it. And so you want to be cautious with that. But I've personally never had any negative side effects to it.
That's great. That is great. I've been too chicken to try it.
Yeah, it helps with my UTI. I'm immune to some antibiotics, and I don't like them anyways. And so I use that, and it worked wonders.
I went through several rounds of UTIs. Matter of fact, I had a UTI while I was back in 2013, and I was getting them so frequently. I've not ingested the oils, but what I would do is drink baking soda and water, apple cider vinegar, bathe in apple cider vinegar, and also bathe in tea tree oil. Then when I got out, I would rub the tea tree oil mixed with the coconut oil on my feet and in my abdominal area. Bam, it'd go away. Another thing is the mustard seed powder. There's a lot of healing that comes from the mustard seed. I'll put it in my bath, make a paste with the coconut oil, put it on my feet, rub it on. I've put it on my face. Same thing with turmeric, or people pop up over here. They never know what I'm going to have on, what color my face is going to be, because I come up with all kinds of crazy stuff. Green from the avocados and all kinds of crazy things, but it works. So
when you use violet or the lavender, I have asthma, and the lavender can clear my asthma up.
Right. I wonder then if boiling you should be okay with the frankincense. How about bringing some water to a boil and using a tea tree oil, or rosemary, or eucalyptus for asthma too, or diffuse it into the home. That would help with the asthma as well. I wonder how the lavender, that's a new one to research. I mean, how the lavender would affect, asthma. Could it actually calm it?
No, it gives me an attack. The smell of it just.
Get you going. Yeah, I have a dear friend who, she suffers from migraines, and she can't really do a whole lot of lavender at all. She can smell it, and it just sends her into a horrible time.
Melanie, we have about just a few minutes left, about 7 minutes left. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Any questions?
So for migraines, people are having great results with piercing. It's called a
Yes.
piercing. And I've seen people go without migraines now.
Yeah, my friend who has the problem with lavender, she went and got one of those piercings.
I hope it's working.
I hope it's working for her well too. It was. She had noticed a difference, so.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. It was helping her, so yeah.
Yay for her. She suffered so long with those things.
Oh my gosh, she's had a horrible way to go with that. She really has.
Like
piercing?
here, I showed on like this part of you.
Tickling me. This is my mom, by the way.
Oh, hi.
Her name's Deb.
Hi,
And she's
Deb.
a nurse, but she's still into the natural stuff. She's not like all take
Yeah.
this and does
I know a lot of nurses and doctors who are. I do.
Okay, do you want to show her?
This part right there.
Oh,
They pierce. And it slows them down.
It's amazing how that works. Just using that pressure point to stop that pain, migraine pain at that.
See, I just think a lot of people don't know about the natural stuff anymore, because you go to a doctor and they are trained to use medicines that are not natural. So,
Right. And your homeopathics are quacks and witch doctors. So we've been conditioned over time to stay away from them. And along with everything else, it appears when I look out into society, we've been gradually over time programmed to be the opposite of actually what we are, and it's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, they used them for thousands of years, especially oil.
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at Valiums. I mean, Valiums are one of the top prescriptions prescribed. And it derives from the valerian root. You can buy valerian root, and it will work. It's very strong. And then you don't need the synthetic version of Valium. Just order valerian. They wouldn't have Valium without valerian, but they're going to add all these components to it that makes it hazardous. It's harmful. Can be. Yeah.
Well, Melanie, I think we need to let you go.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for speaking to everybody. It was amazing. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Sending my love to all of you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Melanie.
Bye-bye. Y'all have a blessed
Bye.
evening.
Have-
If y'all have questions, get them to Tysa
Yes.
and get them to me. All right, give the kids and the dogs my love.
Love too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
That's a lot to digest.
Now you show me that